Good morning, grade 7s, and welcome to WorksheetCloud. My name is Mrs. Verger, but you can call me Mrs. V. I'm going to be here every day to help you stay on top of your English work, so this is the place to be. Just remember, you need to have a piece of paper and a pen. There are activities as we go through this lesson that I'd like you to participate in, and so you need that so that you can write them down. Unfortunately, we are in a difficult situation where I'm not in a classroom with you, and so while you may put up your hand to ask me a question, I can't see you. I can't even see if you get up to mischief, so if you're laughing in the background or you dash to go to the kitchen to get something, I won't see that, which is lucky for you. But on a serious note, this is the place for you to make sure that you are focused and that you are maintaining your academic work so that you can be absolutely fine when you get back to school later on this year. So let's jump right in. We're going to look at an overview for this lesson. So we need to understand what subject and predicate is, and that's a recap from grade 6. We're also going to identify simple and compound sentences, and if you know that already, that's great. It'll also be a recap. And then we're going to step it up a little bit and talk about complex sentences. So we're going to jump straight away into our daily starter. I hope that that's not you. So how many other words can you think of for the word said? So if I gave you the sentence, my mom said, stop that. Now we don't really know how mom is saying that. We don't know if she's annoyed, if she's not, if she's fine. So for instance, if you were at the movies, mom could probably say, mom whispered, stop that. She doesn't really want anybody to hear. Or if she's really annoyed and she gets home and you're doing something that she doesn't like, she could be shouting it. Mom shouted, stop that! So do you see? Whatever word you use instead of said will convey the way in which mom is saying something. So said on its own doesn't give us enough information. So that's almost like a dead word. We want to make words that are alive and have meaning. And so I want you to think of a couple of others. So I've given you 2, whispered and shouted. I want you to think of other ones that you could come up with, not just 6, come up with as many as you can. And then you can pause the video at this stage, and as soon as you finish, we'll come back to my examples. Great. So these are the ones that I came up with. I hope that you've got some similar ones. You might even have some better ones. You could use shouted, uttered, cried, snapped, whined, moaned, screamed, bellowed, replied, stated, or spat. I love that last one. So let's move on to sentences as a recap from grade 6. You should all know that a sentence needs to have 2 things. It needs to have a subject, who or what we are talking about, and it needs to have a verb. And the part of the sentence that has the verb has a special name called a predicate. And I'm not sure if you will remember that, but we're going to go through it now. So if you look at these 3 examples at the bottom, my mom made a delicious meal. There you can see we have got a subject, mom. Made a delicious meal is the predicate. There you've got your verb and the rest of the sentence is the predicate. In the second one, Sam, there is your subject. Built a fort in the garden is your predicate. The cat, that is your subject. What is the cat doing? There's your verb, but the verb with the rest of the sentence is called a predicate. And so these 3 sentences here are simple sentences. Now, when we're talking about a simple sentence, we've already said that it needs 1 subject and 1 predicate, which you now know what that means. But together, these 2 things are called an independent clause. I don't want you to stress too much about that word. Basically, if you think about when you were little as a toddler and mom would help lift you up onto your toes, onto your feet, and then she'd help you walk. You were dependent on mom to help you. You couldn't do it on your own. You couldn't stand on your own. But eventually you became independent, and that made you quite happy. So you could do things on your own. You could stand and walk on your own, and that's exactly what we're talking about with these simple sentences. Can they stand on their own? Are they independent, or are they missing something and they need a bit of help? So if we look at the sentence at the bottom, Mary ate all of her food. If I had to take away Mary and I just had ate all of her food, who ate all of her food? So that sentence would be dependent on having a subject. And so that would be that part over here that's underlined in red is a dependent clause. But because you've got Mary and the rest of the sentence, Mary ate all of her food, that is a simple sentence, but it's also independent. It doesn't need any help. Right, so look at these simple sentences. Can you see and agree with me with the ticks? So number 1, Megan hits. It's got a subject and a verb. So a good sentence. Would we like to know more about what she's hitting? Probably, but on its own, it is absolutely fine. We just hope that she's hitting a ball with a bat and not something else. Number 2, Adrian and Nadia went to the lounge. It is a complete sentence. It's independent. You see it's got 2 subjects there, Adrian and Nadia went to the lounge is your predicate. Complete sentence. It's independent. It doesn't need any help. Number 3, exactly, go to the shop. Who must go to the shop? Must it be dad? Must it be gran? So that sentence over there is missing a subject, and so it's dependent on something else. It's not independent, and that's why we've got that there and not a tick. Number 4, a bear lives in a den. Good, we can see with that we've got bear is our subject. Lives in a den is the predicate, and so it is a simple sentence. It's completely independent. It doesn't need any help. It's really fun. Number 5, let's take a look at number 5, rainy day. What about a rainy day? Rainy days are fun. Rainy days make me sad. We need something else here. There's something missing. And so therefore that young girl there too is saying, I'm missing the predicate. I'm missing the rest of my sentence. So this number 5 is a dependent clause. And then number 6 we end off with, you can see he's excited to watch the movie. Perfect sentence. As a simple sentence, it's got he is excited to watch the movie. He is the subject. Is excited to watch the movie is the predicate, and so absolutely fine. Now if we move on to compound sentences, I want you to think of compound words. So compound words are 2 words that we join together to make a new word, but they've got to be words that are absolutely understandable on their own. So if we take a look at the first one, water, we know water, it makes sense, and melon. I must admit this is one of my least favorite fruits. So water plus melon will give you a completely new word, watermelon. And in the same way, that's what we're talking about compound sentences. It's going to be a complete sentence, sentence number 1, a complete sentence, sentence number 2, and then we combine them to become a compound sentence with 2 sentences. Right, and if you remember, we join 2 sentences together using a conjunction. So can you see over here, sentence 1 has got to have a subject and a predicate, a complete independent sentence. Plus, if I add another sentence which also has a subject and a predicate and it is independent, I've got 2 independent sentences, sentence 1 and sentence 2. If I join them with a conjunction, I get a compound sentence. I hope you're still with me. If you've forgotten about your conjunctions, a quick way to remember some of your basic conjunctions is using fanboys, for and nor, but or yet, so. And you can use those to join a sentence together, join 2 sentences together. But there are lots of other conjunctions. You've got because, you've got although. It just depends on the sentence. So let's take a look. I want you to take a look at these sentences and try them out for yourself. We've got number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I want you to join them together using so, yet, or, for, or the word but. So can you take a look here? Sharon loves to go on roller coasters. She has a fear of heights. Each of these sentences has a subject and a predicate. There is she, subject, and a predicate. The same as number 2, 3, 4, and 5. Each of them have 2 sentences that make sense on their own, but we want to join them together with a conjunction to make a compound sentence. So off you go, and when you come back, we'll go through it. Take a minute you don't need to write out the whole sentence, just write the conjunction. Okay, here we go. So number 1, Sharon loves to go on roller coasters. She has a fear of heights. I hope you went through each one to see which one made sense. And probably the best one is Sharon loves to go on roller coasters, but she has a fear of heights. Number 2, David ate all of his dinner, so he was able to have dessert. Number 3, monkeys must push lids off of dustbins or they will go hungry. It's the only way they can get to the food inside. Number 4, Darren loves to play rugby, but he does not like to be the flower half. And number 5, Mary loves to cook, 4, she has a special talent for it. So I hope you managed to do those. Let's move on to our complex sentences. And this is where I want you to focus as a grade 7 for today. So if you've understood, your simple sentence must have a subject and a verb. Your compound sentence must have 2 sentences that make sense on their own. They both need to have a subject and a predicate, and you join them. Now we take a look at complex sentences. And it's not difficult to understand, so let's take a look. You need one sentence that's an independent clause. So it's got a subject and a predicate. It makes sense on its own. And you need to add it to a dependent clause. So something is missing in that sentence to make it complete. And so if we take a look at these 2 examples, when the food is cooked, take it out of the oven. So if you take a look at that sentence, if I had take it out of the oven, that is a command sentence. It makes sense on its own. Okay, it's got a subject, it, and it's got the predicate, take it out of the oven. Okay, what about when the food is cooked? Can you see it starts with a conjunction? So that's a clue for a dependent clause. It starts with a conjunction, so it almost wants you to add more. When the food is cooked, what must you do? Exactly, so that when the food is cooked is a dependent clause, but take it out of the oven makes sense on its own. It is an independent clause. Let's look at the next one. Matt can fit 20 marshmallows inside his mouth if he puts his mind to it. So now if we take a look at that sentence, Matt can fit 20 marshmallows inside his mouth. That, does it have a subject? Does it have the predicate? Absolutely, that is an independent sentence. Let's look at the next one. If he puts his mind to it, and my apologies there, it's missing an S. If he puts his mind to it. So you can't really see that behind my picture. Let me see if I can move it. There we go. If he puts his mind to it. So if I just gave you that, if he puts his mind to it, then what? He can fit 20 marshmallows inside his mouth. So always ask, is the sentence complete? Does it make sense on its own? If it doesn't and it needs something else, it is a dependent clause. So let's take a look at these. I wonder if you can identify these. When Juliet got home, we must go to the shops. Because we are in lockdown, Georgia does all her work if Layla says yes. So let's go through the first one. When Juliet got home, what happened? What did she do? It's missing something. So this first one up here is a dependent clause. When Juliet got home, I need to know what happened after that. And so it's missing something. It's missing an independent clause. If we look at the next one, we must go to the shops. Complete sentence. It's got a subject and it's got the predicate. Doesn't need anything else. Let's look at the third one. Because we are in lockdown. Because we are in lockdown, we are bored. Because we are in lockdown, we can't go to the shops. What happens because we are in lockdown? So that one is missing something else to complete it. And so this is not a complete sentence. It's dependent on something else. We need to know what is happening because we are in lockdown. Georgia does all her work. Complete sentence. I don't need to have anything on there. Georgia does all her work. It's complete. It's an independent clause. And then the last one, if Layla says yes. If Layla says yes, then what? She is going to go to the matric dance with the handsome man. So if, as soon as you see that word, that already tells you something needs to follow. If Layla says yes, if Layla does not do her work, what's going to happen? So if Layla says yes is a dependent clause. Right, let's move on to the next ones. Independent clauses and dependent clauses. So I want you to take a look at these, and all you need to do is, even if on your piece of paper, you just write I for independent and D for dependent. I want you to identify which parts of those sentences are independent clauses and which are dependent. So for example, I'll start with the first one. Because my supper was too cold, I heated it in the microwave. So take the first part. Because my supper was too cold, what happened? Exactly, this is a dependent clause. I need to know what happened because your supper was too cold. And there's the independent part. I heated it up in the microwave. And you can see if I just had this on its own, I heated it in the microwave, I can have that completely on its own. I don't need anything else to finish it off. It is an independent clause. But if I start with this first part, because my supper was too cold, it's dependent. What happened because of that? Okay, so take a few minutes just to go through the other four, and then we'll come back. Maybe you need to pause the video before you go on. Okay, so here we go. Here are the answers. We've done the first one already. The second one, she returned the game after she noticed it was damaged. So if we look at the first part, she returned the game. You don't need anything else to finish that if that was a sentence on its own. So that is an independent clause. But the dependent one is after she noticed it was damaged. We could have even started with that. After she noticed it was damaged, what did she do? She returned the game. So the ones that are in blue are your dependent clauses. Let's look at the next one. Whenever prices go up, what happens? Ask yourself, what happens in that rest of that sentence? What happens? So that is your dependent clause, and your independent clause is customers buy less products. You could have that as a sentence completely on its own. Number 4, as she was clever and diligent, she got great results. So as you can see, she got great results. I could have had that as a sentence on its own. It makes sense. But the beginning part needs something else. As she was clever and diligent, what happened? What was the result of that? And the last one, wherever you go, you can always find beauty. So say to yourself, wherever you go, happiness follows you. What happens wherever you go? You need something else. So that first part is a dependent clause. And the last one, you can always find beauty. That could be a sentence on its own. You can always find beauty. It's just stating something. Right, another 5 for you to do. So pause the video, go through these, see if you can identify the independent clause and the dependent clause. And when we come back, we'll go through it. Right, although it was very long, the movie was still enjoyable. You should take your car in for a service because it's starting to make weird noises. The actor was happy he got a part in a movie even though the part was small. The book was very interesting, as I expected. When she was younger, she believed in magic. Let's take a look at those answers. So there we go. The movie was still enjoyable. Okay, that can be a sentence on its own, so it's an independent clause. But if I start with, although it was very long, what happened? So it's a dependent clause. Same thing for number 2. You should take your car in for a service because it's starting to make weird noises. If I just gave you that first sentence, you should take your car in for a service, sentence on its own, independent. If I started with, because it's starting to make weird noises, what must you do? It's dependent. The actor was happy he got a part in the movie, independent. Even though the part was small, it's a dependent clause. Okay, it needs something else. Even though the part was small, what are we talking about? And then the book was very interesting, as I expected. The book was very interesting. You could use that sentence on its own and it makes sense. But if I take the second part and I just go, as I expected, what was as you expected? So it leaves something else that we still need a bit more information, and so it's a dependent clause. And the last one, when she was younger, she believed in the magic. So when she was younger, what happened? We need a little bit more, so that's a dependent clause. And the last one, she believed in the magic. Sentence makes sense on its own. Right, now let's see if you can figure this out. So what I've done is I've tried to jumble up a whole lot of sentences and give you 3 options. You need to choose whether it's a simple, a compound, or a complex sentence. So before you go on to this, let's just recap. Number 1, a simple sentence has a subject and a predicate, or a subject and just a verb. A compound sentence, remember, has got to have 2 sentences that both got to make sense on their own. A subject and a predicate, a subject and a predicate, and put them together with a conjunction. But a complex sentence needs to have an independent clause or an independent sentence that we add to a dependent sentence. And that sometimes is also joined with a conjunction. So take a crack at this and we'll come back with the answers in a minute. So here we go. Take a look. Number 1, we have to go to bed when the clock chimes 10 o'clock. Can you see that that is a complex sentence? And I'll go through why. We have to go to bed. There's the first part. That is an independent clause. Makes sense on its own. We have to go to bed. But if I started with the second part here, when the clock chimes 10 o'clock, when the clock chimes 10 o'clock, what must happen? It's missing something. So that's the complex. Got an independent and a dependent clause. Let's take a look at number 2. Jennifer liked William's friend, and she also liked his cousin. That is a compound sentence. Do you see that? We've got Jennifer liked William's friend. That makes sense. It's got a subject and a predicate. And this also makes sense. She also liked his cousin. Also makes sense. She also liked his cousin. And we've joined them together with a conjunction. So that is a compound sentence. Let's look at number 3. The big brown dog ran after the blue and red ball. It's a simple sentence. The big brown dog ran after the blue and red ball. Just simple, got a subject. There's our big brown dog. Ran after the blue and red ball is your predicate. Right, we've got another 3 for you to do, number 4, 5, and 6. So off you go, and when you come back, we'll go through it again. Okay, so number 4, James and Eve rode their bicycles after they ate lunch. As you can see, that's a complex sentence. And remember, complex means you've got an independent and a dependent clause. Doesn't matter in which order. James and Eve rode their bicycles. There we go. That's an independent clause. And then we've got after they ate lunch. So after they ate lunch, what happened? They rode their bicycles. So after they ate lunch is a dependent clause. It needs something else so that we know what happened after they ate lunch. Number 5, the teacher and the principal met in the hall near the library. It's a simple sentence. There's your subject, the teacher and the principal, and there's your predicate. Met in the hall near the library. And number 6, many brave soldiers fought in the war and they received medals. Can you see over there? Many brave soldiers fought in the war. That is a sentence on its own. It's independent. And they received medals. They received medals. It's also an independent clause or an independent sentence. It doesn't need anything. And it is just joined by a compound word. So that is a compound sentence. Well done. Right, and so we've come to the end of our lesson. I do hope that you've enjoyed it. I hope you've learned something. You can always watch this again and again so that you can revise. Just remember that if you are interested in any other lessons for grade 7s, you can go onto our WorksheetCloud, and there's maths and natural science. So just click on those links to watch those lessons. I'll see you tomorrow, same time, and I'll be in the same place. Have a wonderful day.